Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about hiring seniors. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, who would you prioritize hiring for a senior software engineer's position and why would you hire a candidate from a prestigious university like MIT, a state university, or a candidate from a less prestigious university? I wouldn't measure any of my decisions based on the quality of the school that they went to, especially not for a senior software developer, because it frankly only matters in a, at least in my opinion, it only matters for juniors what school you went to, usually. Because the thing that usually people misunderstand is that they don't understand the difference between a person who went to a nice college or school and a person who is actually able to do, who has value, because they're not the same. It's branding, guys. It's the reason why some people convince themselves that, of course, by buying that very expensive t-shirt or pants or whatever you might have, right, you're going to be better, smarter, nicer looking. Maybe you will be nicer looking, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that the branding of everything from companies to clothes and so forth has an effect on people's perception, and this is why everybody wants to work for Google, for example, or so forth, because the brand of the company is the thing that you get sort of swept away by, and that is a mental trick that is played on you, and you play it on yourself a lot because you, as I said, you associate familiarity and prestige and all these sort of things that you can see on the surface with quality. And that is not necessarily true all the time. So you can go absolutely, and I've seen quite a few people like that in my day who have gone to very prestigious colleges and schools and so forth and so forth, but when I ask them to sit down and do any type of meaningful work, they actually can't. And that is because, as I've said, they've gone to the school, but they they haven't learned anything. And then you might as well not go to a very fancy school if you're not going to learn the things that are necessary to actually do the job. Then all you really have is the exact same thing. Like, that's what I argue. You can, I'm not saying that that is always true, but you can almost think of it as, if you have a really prestigious brand, like say Google or MIT or some school or something like that, uh, basically you can convince people that if they go to your school, well, then their CV is going to be worth more. And it is true, because everybody associates them with this high quality thing. It's the same thing with companies, where you have some companies who they have luxury brands, and in other words, everything they do seems to be better or higher quality, and people sort of look up to whatever they are doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually any good at what they do. Hopefully that is true most of the time, because it's kind of hard to swing that you're a prestigious thing or like a really good thing if you have some measurable outcome that isn't really looking so good. It's easier when you're dealing with things that are more soft, where it's hard to determine if you're really as good or as valuable as people believe that you are. But so what I look for when I look for a senior software developer has nothing to do with this sort of stuff. It has to do with life experience, and it has to do with the raw coding skill. Those two things in fairly equal measures makes the difference, at least for when I hire a senior software developer. Because as I've said before, guys, the difference between a senior level software developer and a mid level is in terms of coding skills, not always. Sometimes it absolutely, but not always as great as you might think. The thing the senior usually has, if they're fairly good at what they do, is experience. They have built enough systems that they know how to build certain things, or they know how to think about things. They have a wider range of skill sets than, say, the mid-level. But when it comes to their specific stack or something like that, they may not necessarily be as equipped to deal with all the issues, like everything you might happen upon in a software project, as a senior, like another mid-level or even sometimes a junior. I've been in a few companies, guys, where in the start of my career where I was a junior software developer, and that was back in those days when SBAs just had become a thing and people were like sort of learning how to use React or Angular or Vue and so forth. And I had some people that I worked with who were senior software developers that'd been working for 16 years and they'd never worked with that stuff. So they asked me, "Hey, Frederick, how do I use like this component thing in React, for example?" And so I helped them out. But the thing that I couldn't do, which is the reason why they were of course more valuable to the company than I was, is, well, they know how to build a scalable solution usually. They know how to answer all the questions related to like their domain, their area and so forth, and they know what to bet on and what not to bet on, or what patterns are going to work out, what's not so good, and how to the practices that is necessary for basically running in a team and so forth, or at least the really good ones are. So for me, it's always down to the quality of the individual. I think I've said this before in a video or two. I don't actually look at a person's CV when I do the evaluation. And the reason why I don't usually do that, unless it's like it's usually something I do afterwards, is because if, let's say for the sake of argument, you pass the code test, and I saw that the code was, it's of a decent quality, as I've said before, guys. I cannot, and I argue no one can, tell just exactly how good you are on average when people do a code test. It's really only those really outlier things that you will see, like someone who's really, really bad, or someone who is so amazingly good that they're basically blowing your mind, right? But everything there between, which is the common case, it's very difficult to classify senior, mid-level, junior, or so forth and so forth. So you have a conversation with people in the interviewing stage, and this is where I can figure out if this is a quality person or not, because all I have to do is ask, as I've said before, experience questions. And I don't care if you went to all the nicest colleges, or if you've worked for Google or you ran Google. I don't care, because I can hear if you know how to write software by listening to how you answer questions related to the craft. And that is, at the end of the day, what's going to matter, because everything else is pageantry, it's branding, but the actual output that I can get from you is measured in knowledge and skill, and that is not a guarantee just because you went to a really nice school. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is that when I prioritize hiring a senior, I always prioritize the individual who has the most amount of experience and raw knowledge of how to do things, because that is the thing. That's the person who's going to produce something for us. I might be able to swing that we'll hire some person for some role where the brand is more valuable than anything, like than raw coding skill. If you want to see an example of that, you can take a look at all the professional tech talkers and the evangelists and things, and bloggers and stuff like that. That's where the brand matters more than raw output, because they don't necessarily have to be so good at software development. They just have to have something that pulls people in to whatever we're trying to do within the company. But when it comes to, on average, to a senior software developer who's just going to sit and like do actual work, then it doesn't really matter which school they went to, because the school doesn't equal a nice school does not equal a skillful person. It can if you have a really good school and if you're a really diligent study and you do really, really well. But there are plenty of self-taught people that I know that are at least as good, in some cases even better, than the students who went to a very fancy school and so forth and so forth. And by the time you are a senior, guys, the school you went to it means nothing to the average company. Most people don't even ask in the interview what school you went to, because by that time your work-life experience is much more important. And that's why I tell people that it's more important to get the right jobs and the right experiences in your career than it is what school you went to. Have a great day.